The last topic we must examine is restoration prose. Prose in the Restoration Age witnessed the same aspiration towards rules and order as we noticed in poetry. Perhaps, yet again, under French influence, it moved away from the Elizabethan and Jacobean taste for flourish, quaintness, and the showcasing of the author's idiosyncrasies. It now aimed at clarity and precision of expression intended for the transmission of neatly defined ideas. This is Nicolas Boileau's lodestar principle. Ce que l'on conçoit bien s'énonce clairement, et les mots pour le dire arrivent aisément. Even remaining Puritans, by now defined as nonconformists, somehow took this road, and this is what you have in John Bunyan's allegorical Pilgrim's Progress. Despite near Spencerian abundance of imagination, what we notice is a wonderful simplicity. The main character is Christian. Of course, he is your average Christian, an everyman character. A man who goes on a progress, that's a sort of quest, to leave the city of destruction and reach the celestial city. He has to surmount obstacles, allegorical ones, for instance, doubt and the slough of despond. He has to fight off the deadly sins. For instance, he's not supposed to buy anywares from Vanity Fair. But even in dialogue, the segments are short, direct, never obscure. You see here, he is trying to convince a fellow citizen of the city of destruction, obstinate, who, of course, as the name tells you, will not follow, convince him to join him on the progress, and he says, I seek an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and that fadeth not away, and is laid up in heaven, and safe there to be bestowed, at the time appointed, on them that diligently seek it. Read it so, if you will, in my book. You will read in the excerpts I have provided, likewise, the description of Vanity Fair, la foire aux vanités. And again, you will notice the clarity and the simplicity. And I saw in my dream that when they were got out of the wilderness, they presently saw a town before them, and the name of that town is Vanity. And at the town there is a fair kept, called Vanity Fair. It is kept all the year long. You notice the repetitions, the anaphoras? Very interesting. It beareth the name of Vanity Fair because the town where it is kept is lighter than vanity, and also because all that is there sold, or that cometh thither, is vanity. They contrived here to set up a fair wherein should be sold all sorts of vanity, and that it should last all the year long. Therefore, at this fair are all such merchandise sold as houses, lands, trades, places, honours, preferments, titles, countries, kingdoms, lusts, pleasures, and delights of all sorts, as whores, bawds, wives, husbands, children, masters, servants, lives, blood, bodies, souls, silver, gold, pearls, precious stones, and what not. And moreover, at this fair there is at all times to be seen juggling cheats, games, plays, fools, apes, knaves, and rogues, and that of every kind. You see, it sounds like genuine feeling from the heart, but in fact it's carefully constructed rhetorically. I'm sure you've noticed the parallels, the repetitions, all the tropes that can be noticed. So even a simple man like John Bunyan, a Puritan indeed, a man who thought he had nothing in common with the Stuart courtiers, even with him, this French taste, this classicism, this aspiration to clarity, rationality, regular prose, is somehow to be seen. You may say, oh yes, but the inheritance is more connected with the preaching of the Bible, the style of the King James authorized version of the Bible? Yes, to some extent, but also I'm quite convinced of that. You can see classicism creeping in. The language is admirable, definitely, even of course if you don't adhere to his ideas. Likewise, for historians and philosophers whose work was now becoming more and more part of an emerging public debate in the modern sense of the word. Of course, literary productions had long been used as pawns in the game of court intrigues and politics, but persuasion, and therefore clear, effective discourse, was now needed for a wider audience, and the massification of emerging party politics. Again, read the footnotes. I have just explained a few pages before this one in the footnotes how the Whigs and Tories came to be born. Do read those notes and make sure you understand how it all started. A fine example is provided by Charles II's Chancellor Edward Hyde, whose famous History of the Great Rebellion, of course the Great Rebellion is the Civil War, though written long before, had to be hastily published in 1701 with Tory support to counter Roundhead Edmund Ludlow's Memoirs, published with Whig support in 1698-1699. So you see, political parties were starting to fight with books, with prose. That went together with the rise of classicism. The greatest philosopher, and again very clear prose writer, was of course John Locke. He is better known for his political theories as the father of liberalism in his two treatises of government, a major influence much later on the American Revolution. Locke was nevertheless also an epistemologist, and he challenged Descartes by defending empiricism. No innate ideas or concepts at birth, only acquired conscious experience via the primacy of sense perception. He even pushed it to the notion that our identity is only the sum of this acquired experience. This is what you have in an essay on human understanding, 1690. Finally, perhaps coincident with a growing interest for history, biography, and autobiography, mine as yours rose to prominence via outstanding diarists. The first one deserving to be mentioned is John Evelyn. His diaries, or memoirs, span the whole of his life, from student days to his death. They include his hobbies, gardening, for instance, famous events. He witnessed the execution of Charles I, and extensive travels, famously to Italy. Circulating in manuscripts, they were not printed until 1818, much later, but everybody, every man of culture, every intellectual knew John Evelyn's diaries. They were circulating, definitely. The second one to be mentioned is Samuel Pepys. He was a Royal Navy administrator, he was an MP, he was a courtier, he was a bon vivant, you might say. He kept a diary from 1660 to 1669. Again, this was not printed until the 19th century, but again, it was very well known among intellectuals. Those key years had everything in them. There was the Restoration itself, the Great Plague, the Great Fire, and the Second Dutch War. He was also very frank about his own household. His diaries are full of anecdotes with everyone from Charles and James to actresses, not to mention everything about daily London life. Some of it he must have felt was offensive, and therefore he used a sort of personal code and foreign words when passages were too scurrilous. In short, the diaries of Samuel Pepys are a goldmine of information and lively entertainment. I have provided here an excerpt, I think. Yes, there it is. Let me see. No, that's later. I have Pepys. I think I have Pepys. Oh, John Locke, you'll have a look at that. Oh, yes. There you have a passage from, several passages from this one, for instance, is especially interesting. September 1666. This is the month when the Great Fire of London took place. Now, the other passage is interesting because of the modernity of it. For instance, Saturday, February the 4th, 1664. Sometimes 65 because the calendar was being changed at the time. So sometimes we have to, he's noting it as 64, but in fact it's 65. Lay long in bed, discoursing with my wife about her maids, which by Jane's going away in discontent and against my opinion, do make some trouble between my wife and me. But these are but foolish troubles, and so not to be set to heart. Yet it do disturb me mightily, these things. To my office, and there all the morning. At noon, being invited, I to the sun behind the change, to dinner to my Lord Bellass's, where a great deal of discourse with him, and some good among others at the table, told us a very maybe we could turn to the last passage. Yeah, the last excerpt. Very interesting. Because it's very modern. It will give you an idea of his domestic situation. Friday the 2nd, August 1667. Up. But before I rose, my wife fell into angry discourse of my kindness yesterday to Mrs. Nip, and leading her and sitting in the coach hand in hand, and my arm about her middle, and in some bad words reproached me with it. I was troubled, but having much business in my head and desirous of peace, rose and did not provoke her. So she up and come to me, and added more, and spoke basely of my father, who I perceived did do something in the country, at her last being there, that did not like her. But I would not inquire into anything, but let her talk, and when ready, away to the office. It sounds almost like a, modern soap opera situation with the man being pestered by his wife. Okay, well, I guess that's it. I must end with my usual suggestions for film and TV references. We've got some very good things about the period. I strongly recommend this. Charles II, The Power and the Passion, 4-part TV series, remarkable Rufus Sewell as King Charles. Everything you need to know about the period is in there. Very close to Pepys' narrative, and Pepys is one of the characters, is The Great Fire, another 4-part TV series. Well, much less valuable material is to be found in film. There is, for instance, this one, Restoration, 1995, and I might even recommend a recent anime adaptation of The Pilgrim's Progress, 2019. Of course, you like or dislike the religious ideas that are in this film, but never mind that. This will give you an idea of how it's written. But again, as I said, the simplicity, the near classic simplicity of the prose and ideas in it. This is to be found very easily on the internet. Basic must-reads, at least one Restoration comedy, and you'll have fun reading it. John Dryden, some selections from Dryden, definitely. Likewise, The Diaries of Samuel Pepys, again, selections. The full diaries are available, but selections are quite enough. So, I guess that's it for the Restoration period.